Hello students. Students, today we are going to discuss chapter number 4 of Oliver Twist. And the name of the chapter is Oliver Meets Mr. Brownlow. Students, in the last chapter, that is chapter number 3, Oliver had fallen down on the street and an old gentleman took him to his house in a carriage. That old gentleman was none other than Mr. Brownlow. Oliver was unconscious for a few days, and when he came into consciousness, he woke up and found himself on a clean and comfortable bed. An old lady, Mrs. Bedwin, was sitting near him. Mrs. Bedwin was Mr. Brownlow's housekeeper. Oliver started becoming better and stronger, and after a few days, Mrs. Bedwin took Oliver to her sitting room. While Oliver was sitting on the chair, he saw a picture on the opposite wall, and that picture was of a young woman. Oliver felt that the picture was very beautiful, but the eyes looked very sad. At that time, Mr. Brownlow also entered the sitting room, and he pointed out to Mrs. Bedwin that Oliver's face looked exactly like the face of the lady in the picture. Next day, Mrs. Bedwin had removed the picture from its place, and when Oliver inquired about it, she said that because it made Oliver sad, that is why she had removed the picture. After a few days, Oliver was very happy in Mr. Brownlow's house, because he was given very good food by Mrs. Bedwin, and Mr. Brownlow bought new clothes for Oliver. One day, Mr. Brownlow wanted to meet Oliver in his study, and Mrs. Bedwin dressed him up, combed his hair neatly, and took him to Mr. Brownlow's study. When he entered in the study, Oliver found that there were many books in the racks in the study room, and Mr. Brownlow was sitting on a chair near the window. Oliver also went there, and Mr. Brownlow made him sit near him, and he started asking Oliver about his past life. While Oliver was narrating his story, there was a knock on the door, and an old fat man named Mr. Grimwig entered the study. He was Mr. Brownlow's friend. Mr. Brownlow introduced Mr. Grimwig to Oliver and said that Oliver was the same boy he had discussed about. Mr. Grimwig did not like boys, and he always thought that the boys are always dishonest. Mr. Grimwig told Mr. Brownlow that this boy was going to tell him a pack of lies, and if he doesn't, then he would eat his hat. Students, the phrase "I will eat my hat" is used when a person is confident about whatever he is saying. So, in that case, he says that I will eat my hat if this thing does not happen. While Mr. Brownlow and Mr. Grimwig were having this discussion, Mrs. Bedwin came inside the study with some books, and Mr. Brownlow inquired that was the boy still waiting out who had come with the books. So Mrs. Bedwin said that the boy had already left. Mr. Brownlow had to return some books to the bookstore. When Mr. Grimwig came to know that he wanted to return some books, so he told Mr. Brownlow that why didn't he send Oliver to the bookstore to return the books. Although Mr. Brownlow did not want to send Oliver at that time, late evening, but he wanted to prove to Mr. Grimwig that Oliver was an honest boy, so he agreed to send Oliver to the bookshop. Oliver was very happy to do this errand for Mr. Brownlow. So Oliver took the books and he had £5 with him, which was given to him by Mr. Brownlow, and he left the house to go to the bookstore. As soon as he left, Mr. Grimwig said that now Oliver would never return back, because Oliver had new clothes that he was wearing. He had some books with him, and he also had £5 with him. So he was sure that he would never return back. He would go to his friends, the thieves, and then laugh at Mr. Brownlow. He again added the same phrase that he would eat his hat if he is not proved right. Now they were waiting. Mr. Brownlow and Mr. Grimwig were waiting inside the study for Oliver to arrive. They waited and waited for a long time, but Oliver did not return back. And it was late in the evening, and they were just waiting for him. Now, students, we will come to know in the next chapter that where had Oliver gone? Why did he not return back? Was he dishonest? Was he actually involved with the thieves? All these answers you will get in the next chapter, that is chapter number 5. Okay, students, see you soon with the next chapter, and we will complete this part of the mystery of the story, that where had Oliver gone. Students, see you soon. Bye-bye.